Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight the topic is going to be a very interesting topic. It's a topic of called Masseh Shabbas. So, what does it mean? What does it mean to do Masseh Shabbas? So it means if let's say someone does something on Shabbos which is not permitted, so that the status of whatever person did, like let's say someone cooked on Shabbos, so the status of that food now becomes prohibited because it was something which was created on Shabbos. Literally what it means, something created on Shabbos in a not permissible manner. Um so so there's discussion. Okay, so what is the status of those things? Are we permitted to benefit from it, or are we not permitted to benefit from it? Let's say you go to someone's house and they they just cook on Shabbos. They make food, it's kosher food, but they did it on Shabbos. Can you eat the food? So that's a very relevant halacha, and it's a big discussion. So it starts with there's uh, Raisa comes up in a few places. In Shas comes up in Baba Kama, comes up in Chulin, comes up in Gittin. It's the fundamental machlokes in regard to this topic, which you have to understand. So it's a three-way machlokes. Three Tanaim, they all have an opinion. So there's the opinion of Rabbi Meir, there's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and there's a opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Hasanler. You really need a chart to see it in front of you, but we'll try to make it as clear as possible. So first is Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says, let's say the person, let's stick with our example. Someone cooked on Shabbos. So what is the halacha? What's the status of that food? So he says, on Shabbos itself, it depends. If he did it, if the person cooked and he did it by accident, what does it mean by accident? It means either he didn't know it was Shabbos, or he didn't know it was not allowed to cook, right? Both of those things would be called shogeg, either one of those things, right? So what's the status of the food? So on Shabbos itself, he can eat it, and also other people can eat it. But if he did it on purpose, let's say he knew it was Shabbos, and he knows you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. So Rabbi Meir says it's prohibited for him, not just him, it's prohibited for everybody. That is Masseh Shabbos. Nobody can have that food. But when Shabbos ends, Rabbi Meir says no matter what, in both those cases, it's permitted to have the food. That's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda, he's a little bit more stringent. Rabbi Yehuda says, so that this cooked food that was done on Shabbos, so whether it was done by accident, whether it was shogeg, whether it was done on purpose, on Shabbos itself, no one can touch it. It's Masseh Shabbos. Nobody's allowed to touch it. What about after Shabbos? So after Shabbos, if it was done accidentally, Rabbi Yehuda says, everyone can have it as soon as Shabbos ends. It's no problem. But if it was done purpose, Rabbi Yehuda says that it's going to be prohibited to this person who did it, even after Shabbos, it's going to be prohibited to him forever. But other people, after Shabbos ends, it's going to be permitted for them. That's Rabbi Yehuda. So he's a little bit more stringent than Rabbi Meir. And then finally, you have the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says that it's on Shabbos itself, it's prohibited for everybody, whether it's done on purpose, whether it's done by accident, it's going to be prohibited. What about after Shabbos? So if it was done on purpose, it's still prohibited, and not just for him, but for everyone. Right? Rabbi Yehuda was the one who said after Shabbos, he said it's prohibited for him, but other people could benefit. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says if it was done on purpose, nobody can have it even after Shabbos. But if it was done by accident, it's still going to be prohibited for him, but other people can have it. So each different Tana, upgrades the level of stringency by one. Again, Rabbi Meir says it's done accidentally on Shabbos, he can have it, and other people can have it, and if it's done on purpose, but if it was done on purpose, nobody can have it on Shabbos, but after Shabbos, he's totally permits it. Rabbi Yehuda says though, no, nothing's allowed on Shabbos. right? Rabbi Yochanan Salmer says the only case that's going to be allowed is going to be after Shabbos if it's done accidentally for other people, not even for the guy itself. So that's the machlokes, and it becomes very relevant how we're going to who we're going to rule like. But before we get to that, so the question is why is why would it make sense that something done on Shabbos should be prohibited? It's a little bit strange. It's not treif, right? It is kosher food that someone's making. So why are you gonna say it's not, I can't eat it? Why can't I eat it? It's kosher food. So seems to be a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos, how they understand the prohibition. Rashi explains that there's a prohibition of benefiting from a malacha that was done on Shabbos. That's what he says. There's a prohibition of benefiting from malacha done on Shabbos, and therefore it's going to be benefit is prohibited to him. So he explains that, maybe Chazal thought it was, a little bit gross if one gets benefit when it's done on purpose, but maybe if it's done accidentally, it's a little bit less gross, right? And it's not called a Chol Shabbos, and then you have to plug it in to each of the opinions there to understand exactly how they understand it. Tosfos understands that no, maybe the reason that Masseh Shabbos stuff created on Shabbos is prohibited, there's nothing to, not because it's gross to get a benefit from Shabbos. He feels something totally different. Rather, it's a fine, meaning when you do a malach on Shabbos, Chazal, the rabbis, they didn't want you to benefit from it. But it's not that the actual malacha, the actual activity or thing that was made on Shabbos has a status of Isser, status of prohibited food. It's just we fine you. We don't want you to keep doing this. And Tosfos a little bit he compares it to something done by there's a prohibition of a mir lenachri, meaning you can't ask a non-Jew to do malacha for you, and the and Chazal tell us that you can't even, not only that, is that if they do something for you, let's say you ask a non-Jew to cook for you, you can't benefit from it. And the reason is because you're going to come to ask the person to do it for you again next week. So Chazal, they fine you to not allow any benefit from a non-Jew. And not only that, they even extend it to past Shabbos to the time that you could have done the same activity on Shabbos itself. So meaning, like let's say for example, I don't know, they cook you food, right? So not you, so once Shabbos ends, you still can't have it. You have to wait. Let's say, I don't know, they're cooking you pasta, for example. So how long does it take to make pasta? I don't know, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So you can't have that pasta right away. You'd have to wait 15 minutes till after Shabbos. They fine you. So he says that's true. That's true when it comes to for a non-Jew asking you to do work, but for a Jew who cooks for you, you wouldn't have to wait that amount. And Tosfos understands it like that. But the point is, why is Masseh Shabbos prohibited? According to Rashi, it's because you are benefiting from a malacha done on Shabbos. Tosfos says no, it's because it's a fine. So the Shulchan Aruch, some people say they learn that he paskins like Tosfos, because the difference between Tosfos and Rashi would be if you need to wait that extra amount, right? Tosfos is learning that it's all about a fine, so he says that fine is only true about a non-Jew, but not about a Jew itself. But according to Rashi, it's all about benefiting from Shabbos, so he thinks that it probably should apply still. But okay. Either way, so back to our machlokas, right? And our machlokas is very important because let's say, this did happen. You went to somebody's house and they made food on Shabbos. And now you want to know if you could eat it, right? And let's assume these people, right? They didn't realize that it was a problem to make food on Shabbos, or maybe they didn't realize that you know, they thought that you're allowed to heat something up in the oven, and really you're not supposed to, right? So can you eat the food? So if you hold like Rabbi Meir, right, that's shogeg, that's somebody who did something accidentally, and therefore you could eat the food. It's no problem, according to Rabbi Meir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, or according to Rabbi Yochanan Samler, it's going to be totally prohibited on Shabbos, whether it was done on purpose or even if it was done b'shogeg. So it becomes a very, very relevant question. How do we paskin? So that's a big machlokes. How do we paskin? So the Gemara in Bava Kama, and in Ksubos, they has a machlokes between Ravach and Ravina. It discusses, is Masseh Shabbos, this concept that we're talking about, actions that were done on Shabbos, is that biblical prohibition or is that rabbinical? In the Rif, he comments there that he says that this machlokes is really the same machlokes as our brisa, right? Our machlokes between the Tanaim. And since whenever there's a rule that anytime you have Ravina against Ravacha, the rule is we paskin like the one who's more lenient. So therefore, we're going to paskin in ours like the more lenient. We're going to eject Rabbi Yochanan the Sandler. So that's a discussion. Do we paskin like that Rif or not? There's another Gemara that's relevant too. The Gemara in Chulin says that someone was teaching in front of Rav the Amora, and they said, the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Just that's good for us, right? We got halacha like Rabbi Meir. That's great. But what did Rav do? The Gemara says Rav shushed him. He's like, stop talking. So the Gemara asks, why do you tell him to be quiet just because he disagreed? That doesn't sound very it doesn't sound very Jewish. We like to. I'm saying if someone disagrees, okay, we talk about it. We don't just shush them just because they're Jewish. Sorry, just because they disagree. And furthermore, the Gemara says that Rav, when he would teach to his students, he would say, you can go like Rabbi Meir, but when he would give a public shiur, he was actually more machmir like Rabbi Yehuda. So why is Rav just telling this person to stop talking, right? Just because he's saying like Rabbi Meir doesn't make so much sense. So the Gemara resolves that, but the Rishonim, they try to, okay, what do we learn from this story? What do we learn from the fact that Rav was shushing the person because he was saying like halachas like Rabbi Meir? So Tosfos says, what do I learn from that story? I learned that halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Why? Because Rav would tell his Talmidim the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Okay, so the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. We could be lenient. The Rif and the Rambam says no. He paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. That's what he would say in public. He would teach everyone when he would give a public shir. He would say halachas like Rabbi Yehuda. So that's what he holds. He holds halachas like Rabbi Yehuda. The Ramban he brings a few proofs that really the halachas like Rabbi Meir. So he says, even though Rav may be passing like Rabbi Meir in this story, right? He would tell his Talmidim that passing like Rabbi Meir. He says, but the Gemara in Eruvin says that anytime you have a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, who does the halacha go like? Halacha goes like Rabbi Yehuda. So Rav happens to say that's not really a rule. We don't follow that rule. But Rabbi Yochanan says that anytime you have Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, we follow Rabbi Yehuda. He says that is a real rule. And anytime and furthermore says the Ramban, okay, so now we have Rav who's saying it's like Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yochanan who's saying it's like Rabbi Yehuda. So Rav against Rabbi Yochanan, who wins? Rabbi Yochanan wins. That's the rule. So we hold like Rabbi Yochanan against Rav, so we should pass him like Rabbi Yehuda. That's his first proof. His second proof of the Ramban says there's a Gemara in Shabbos tells a story about Abaye, and there are other Amoraim there too, that they went to eat in Rava's house, and they would not eat the food, because they weren't happy with the way he prepared the food on Shabbos. So the Ramban says, but wait, okay. At worst, this is only a Masseh Shabbos, right? Something done on Shabbos, b'shogeg, accidentally, because Rava thought it was mutter, that's why he did it, and Abaye thought it was aser. So the fact that Abaye is refusing to eat the food must mean that he's stringent on this issue about Masseh Shabbos done accidentally, and he's holding like Rabbi Yehuda that you can have it. the whole story with Abai is a little bit strange anyway, because there's a very famous, very important to know opinion of the Magen Avram, which says, let's say you're at someone's house and they're relying on say maybe in they're doing something which you wouldn't paskin, you wouldn't say it's permitted, but there is an opinion out there that says it's permitted. So then you are allowed to benefit from it. So maybe that's only if you hold something is wrong, but maybe that's whole only maybe that's maybe if you hold that opinion is totally wrong, then you can't rely on it. But it makes the story a little bit strange and it's a question. And then the third proof that the Ramban brings is they says that so Rav said it himself, said in public that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. That's what he would say publicly. And for sure that's what he would have told us. Because the Ramban says we're all Ami arts, we're all ignoramuses. We don't know. So for sure the halacha should be like Rabbi Yehuda. Beis Yosef quotes from the Ran. He says similar, but he says nowadays, since there are plenty of Amiyards, a lot of ignoramuses, so we should pass in like Rabbi Yehuda. He doesn't say that we are. The Ramban says we are the Amiyards. Beis Yosef quoted from the Ran that there's many around. But anyways, the Ramban thinks very vehemently that the halacha should be like Rabbi Yehuda. But who paskins like Rabbi Meir? This is the opinion of the Vilna Gaon and the Gra. He says the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. So what does he do with all the Ramban's proof? So he goes through them one by one. So he says, even though Rabbi Yochanan holds the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, but that's only when there are no other factors. But here we have an actual story where Rav is holding like Rabbi Meir. We know that's Rav's opinion. That's what he's telling his students. And then he says, what about the story about Abaye who wouldn't eat at Rav's house? He says, yeah, but that's because they were a Rav, right? The public figure. So if they're going to eat at someone's house who's using Rava's house, who's holding an opinion that he doesn't hold by, everyone's going to think that that's because he approves of the way the food was prepared, and he didn't want everyone to learn from them. And then finally, what about the fact that Rav taught this in public, and nowadays aren't we all Ameyaretz? So the Gra is not convinced. He says that's talking about people. Rabbi Rav taught in public Rabbi Yehuda because he was talking to people who really didn't know anything at all. But now we know stuff. And Rav would tell us the halacha like he told the Talmidim, the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. So this is a big machlokas. How do we paskin? And it's very relevant, right? We need to know what to do. At someone's house, can you eat the food? So it says the Shulchan Aruch. How do we rule in this case? What do we think? Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir. It says the halacha is Rabbi Yehuda, right? And that would mean you go to someone's house, they don't know the halacha. They think that you can heat up something in an oven, right? Turn the oven on, you can heat it up in the oven, which is not correct. So you would not be able to eat the food. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. But the Mishnah Berurah comes in, and he has three different times that you can three different ways that he says you could be a little bit lenient. So he says, although the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Ramban and he paskins like the Rif, but you have the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, right? He paskin like Tosfos, which is holds like Rabbi Meir, right? That when it's done accidental, it's mutter, it's permitted on Shabbos, right? So therefore, it says number one, first important kula is that when it's makom tzorech, when it's a time of need, you can rely on this opinion. So that's a big one to rely on. And then he says that's in Sivkat and Zion. And then Sivkat and Gimel, Junior Sivkat and Gimel, 318.3, he says that another big kula, he says that if it's a rabbinical prohibition, right, if it's a malacha derabanan, then he explains that even according to Rabbi Yehuda, when it's done accidentally, you can get benefit from it. So that's a big one too. That basically Rabbi Yehuda is going to agree that if something was done accidentally on Shabbos, but if it's a rabbinical prohibition, it's still permitted. So that's a big deal too. And then finally, the last big kula is that the Mishnah Berurah writes in Sivkat and Beis, he says that whenever it's a suffix, whenever we're unsure, or it's a machlokas, right? If let's say we have an issue which is a machlokas, right, and among the Rishonim for different areas, and it happens to be that we are usually stringent about this, but their opinions the other way. So he says whenever that's true, we're not going to prohibit Masseh Shabbos b'diavad because you can rely on the opinion of the Gra, you can rely on Rabbi Meir that it's going to be permitted in that case. So that's a big deal. Those kulas of Mishnah Berurah are a big deal, which help out a lot. Anytime you need to benefit from Masseh Shabbos. Okay, good. One more thing we want to mention, and then a couple of cases that are discussed in the poskim. That there's a Gemara in Eruvin which discusses, let's say you have fruit that are removed from the tchum, right, from the permissible place you can go on Shabbos. So let's say they're removed from the tchum in a way that's prohibited, and then they're returned inside to the tchum. So can you eat those fruit or can you not eat those fruit? And the Gemara concludes, you can eat those fruit. So the Rishonim ask a question on the Gemara. They say, I don't understand. Isn't that something that which is done on Shabbos, or maybe this is the case of Yantif. This is something that's done on Yantif, prohibited way. So how can you benefit from it? So there are different opinions. Tosfos says, and the problem here, Tosfos says that, this is not a case of something which was done accidentally. This was a case of something done on purpose. So even if you hold like Rabbi Meir, but even if you're going to be the most lenient, you hold like Rabbi Meir, it's not going to help you because this is something which is done on purpose, and nobody rules that if something was done on purpose, that people can benefit from Shabbos. Everyone's going to say that Masseh Shabbos is prohibited. So how can the Gemara say that you could eat those fruit which are removed from the tchum on Shabbos? So Tosfos has his opinion. He says that, basically if you have no other options, you could be lenient. That's what Tosfos says. And because it's a and because it's a derabanan, right? Since there's no other options and it's derabanan, you could maybe rely on it. The Ramban has his opinion too. He says that the items in this case were basically brought back into the tchum. So the Masseh Shabbos, the action of Shabbos, which made it prohibited, was basically undone. So, what would be similar would be like, let's say someone heated up soup for you on Shabbos, and then it cooled down, so it was cold. So the Ramban would tell you that, there's no Masseh Shabbos because the entire action was gone, right? You had no benefit from the action they did. So the soup, although it was prohibited for you when it was hot, but now that it's cold, it's going to be permitted for you again. But then there's opinion of the Rabbeinu Yonah, who has this concept, which says that the Gemara uses example of Masseh Shabbos. It uses the example of cooking. Why? Because cooking is the best example of an action that actually qualitatively changes the item. So anytime there's a prohibition on Shabbos, anytime there's a malacha done on Shabbos, which qualitatively changes the item, that's going to be prohibited because of Masseh Shabbos. But let's say someone did something which doesn't qualitatively change the item, so then there's no Aser of Masseh Shabbos. He says there needs to be an actual something done in the guf hadavar, in the body of the item. So, so this comes up. The example Rabbi Leibowitz gave us, he said, let's say you invite somebody for a meal on Friday night, and they're coming from far away, and they get to the meal on Shabbos. They came from outside of Shusarabim, right? Maybe they did other malachas to get there. So, and they brought you wine. So the wine, right, is coming from Masseh Shabbos. So can you serve it at the meal? So if you learn like Rabbeinu Yonah, right, there's nothing that actually changed qualitatively in the item. So therefore you can have the wine. It's not a problem according to Rabbeinu Yonah. And that's an important opinion which the post can mention. So there's a lot of discussion about also what's considered like this direct benefit based on this idea of Rabbeinu Yonah. So Moshe has a tshuva. He says if a Jew brings a house key through a Rishus Harabim, which is not permitted, let's say he basically carries, so you can't open the door, and he brings you the key. So you can't open the door with that key. And even when someone unlocks, you can't get through that door because that's Masseh Shabbos. Um, but not everybody agrees to that. Mincha Shlomo says you can't open the door, but once the house is already open, that's not a direct benefit, so it's going to be permitted. Um, yeah. But Rav Yashiv says that one can go through the house once it's open because you're not benefiting from the malacha, you're benefiting from the outcome of the malacha. So this is always a discussion. And so there's some other cases here though. Let's say you want to take a bus in Israel and the driver got to you right after Shabbos. Why? Because he drove on Shabbos. So are you able to benefit from his action that was done on Shabbos, or do you have to do you can do you have to wait? So some post-game are stringent. The Aslan Brew says, no, this is really this indirect benefit, so you can be lenient if you need. What about if like a non-Jew turns off the light in your room? So the Masseh Shabbos says you're not really getting benefit from the malacha, it's really indirect. Um, like this Pini Rabbeinu Yonah. And then yeah, Shlomo Zalman discusses this case about the wine. Let's say they brought you wine. Um, so he says you can have the wine, it's not a problem because he says even though the Chayei Adam was machmir for something done on a biblical b'mezid, even when there's no change in the item, meaning this opinion of Rabbeinu Yonah says that's the Chayei Adam says that if it was done on a deoraisa, a biblical violation, then you can't benefit. But that's only, but someone says no, that's only when you directly benefit from malacha. But in this case, you rather your guest get to you in a permissible way, so you can benefit. Apparently, Rosh was machmir about that. Um, they also say, like, they asked for Chaim Kanievsky, let's say a Jewish waiter drove to your event on Shabbos. So can you benefit from your waiter, right? He did Masseh Shabbos, and now you want to benefit from him. So Chaim said, no, Chazal prohibited getting benefit from malacha, but here you'd be getting benefit from a person that did Masseh Shabbos, and a person can't be prohibited as Eser Hana. I mean, this is important because let's say you invited someone to your house and they got there in a non-permissible manner, right? They did a Maaseh Shabbos, and then you want them to pass you the salt, right? So are you getting a benefit because someone did a malacha on Shabbos? So according to Rechaim, no, it's not an issue because the person can't be prohibited on Shabbos. Okay, there's a lot of discussions here, but you know when it comes up, it's good to know that there are things to rely on for these issues, and also that there is this concept that exists of Maaseh Shabbos. We'll stop here.